everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to take a look at and react to some natural dyeing videos that in theory I was going to make, but then never ended up making. Basically, I started prepping materials, collecting leaves or blossoms that I thought I would use for some natural dyeing, and then I never ended up making those videos. So today we're going to talk about what happened, why those videos never got made, and I'm gonna look at this footage for the first time. First, we're gonna look at some rhubarb leaves. Now, rhubarb actually did a really phenomenal job of dyeing wool. When I did this in the past, I just collected, I think about 13 leaves from my harvest of rhubarb from just a small little patch I have in my yard. I boiled the leaves and then dyed some mini skeins of yarn. And the yarn ended up picking up some really beautiful green color. And so this made me want to do this again. But now let's look at these clips that I filmed, and I may need to edit some of it out, but we'll see.
Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from
Oh, I
ChemKnits,
did an introduction.
and it is past time for me to harvest my rhubarb. I don't have any time to try dyeing with the leaves today, but I do want to attempt to salvage this somewhat. So I'm going to try to dry a bunch of the leaves. That way I can save them for a little later in the summer when I'm ready to dye the yarn with rhubarb leaves.
Drying the vegetation could be a really, really good way to, I guess, preserve it a little bit longer, so that way we could have it to dye with later. But looking at the rhubarb, I'm getting excited. This was a really good crop, and the leaves were very healthy at this point. Sometimes they get munched on a little bit more. But let's carry on. It's weird watching unedited clips without transitions, but I really have not watched these since, goodness, I think these might be from 2020. I just checked the files. This is actually from the summer of 2019.
Here is my pile of edible stems.
Yum.
And then all of the leaves spread out all around my driveway.
I spread the leaves out just for, I think, on one hand, a little bit of drama, but also I thought that there was a better, oh, hello, Indy. I thought that there was a better chance for the leaves to dry out if I had them spread out. So I think, if I remember correctly, and it's been over 3 years, I think I left them out there to just dry out.
I'm going to leave the I am going to leave the leaves out in the sun. I'm going to hope that they start drying out, shrinking up a bit, and cross my fingers. Already some of them seem to start like wilting a little bit, which hopefully is a good thing. Ooh, some wind. Hopefully they're heavy enough that they won't really blow away, but I will come and keep an eye on them over the afternoon. Worst case scenario, I'll just have to wait for the second crop.
Oh, a second crop. I must have done well that year with the rhubarb. But one concern I have is that rhubarb leaves are actually poisonous. So you don't want any pets like Mr. Indy Ponce, who's now sitting down next to me. You don't want pets to eat them, or at the time my kids were younger, and so I didn't want to have them inside the yard. But I also didn't want to just put them in a plastic bag where they could mold. I wanted to let them dry out in a way that wouldn't get gross.
I didn't wash the leaves, but I did shake off as much of the dirt as I could easily.
Maybe I should have washed them, actually. I mean, not that I remember this being an issue, but washing them before drying them out would potentially be a good idea. I've never done that before, though.
Well, that worked better than I expected. After a few hours in the sun, some are legit crunchy, and then most of them are somewhat floppy. So I think that if it doesn't rain tonight, then by tomorrow, hopefully they'll be pretty dry.
Well, and that's that. So the leaves did finish drying out, and then I stored them in my garage for a very long time. And then a few years later, I threw them away because I wasn't sure how long it had been. I don't think I ever stored them in a plastic bag. And I decided enough was enough. This has been sitting here long enough without me doing anything. Why am I saving it? if I were gonna do this again, and I may do this again, but this most recent year's leaves weren't nearly as pretty. Not that I think they need to be pretty for natural dyeing, but they just seemed a little bit like less healthy. And so it didn't occur to me to attempt to save them. But natural dyeing feels a lot like making tea. So having the leaves or flowers be dry shouldn't be an issue. Next up, we're gonna take a look at some of my cherry blossoms. Now, I have a beautiful flowering cherry tree that doesn't have any fruit, so I'm not quite sure what kind of cherry tree it is in my backyard. And this actually was the inspiration for a ChemKnits dye-along one year. I love this tree, and it has the softest baby pink flowers. And I don't know if this was a request from someone else, but at a point in the spring, the petals start raining down, and it's super beautiful. But let's go see what I filmed. Oh.
Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits.
Hey, I did an introduction again!
And here on this YouTube channel, I have dyed yarn inspired by my beautiful cherry tree.
I didn't remember that I had said that already. When is this footage from? This one is from 2020. And I guess I can preface this and think that at the time when we were in the shutdown, everyone was staying home, no one was going anywhere. I thought that I was going to be doing a lot more filming outside, not appreciating how much time my kids and I and my husband would be spending outside. So the driveway and cul-de-sac became a big play zone. So I did do, I think, some natural dyeing then, but then there were a lot of other plans that just didn't follow through with because it was loud out there and chaotic versus being less chaotic than the inside of my house. I'm still amazed that I was able to do 2 videos a week all through the pandemic, but let's get back to this footage.
But I wonder if we can actually use these blossoms to dye some yarn.
The tree is so pretty.
It is mid-May and the blossoms are nearing the end of their time on the tree, which would mean I would feel a little less guilty harvesting some flowers. A couple of days ago, I took some petals and let them dry, and there actually is some good pigmentation in here.
This was something that I did, and let me get a better freeze frame. And it's so blurry. But the flowers are not white, they're a blush pink, but it doesn't seem like a lot of pigment. And in general, in order to get like a punch with natural dyes, you need a lot of material, a lot of pigment. I think that around this time was when I revisited dandelions and I filled a 5-gallon bucket with as many flowers as I could, going all around the neighborhood, harvesting blossoms. And it was so much work for a color that was fine. There was some good pigment there, but not necessarily like worth the amount of time I spent for gathering the material. And I guess this is a big reason why I haven't done some of this, but I was unsure how much I would need to get any kind of payoff to make any kind of conclusion when the flowers here are so pale.
Petals themselves are fairly pastel, but who knows, maybe we can extract some pigment. Now, I don't think that I'd get a beautiful pink color on the yarn, but maybe we could get a beautiful warm toned brown.
When dyeing with teas, the closest I've had to a pink has been maybe a pinkish brown from some of the fruity teas. But in general, a lot of the reds tend to oxidize into something more brown.
If I am able to get enough material that I think it could work in the spring of 2020, we will be trying this year. Otherwise, maybe I'll save the petals for 2021. We will be dyeing some 20-gram mini skeins, and I plan to test one that was treated with a cool vat, a loam mordant, and then a second that was not treated with any mordant, so we can examine the difference.
I think I bulk mordanted some yarn in 2020, and I did do, I think, the dandelion and maybe forsythia. Maybe those were both 2020, but then the rest of the yarn ended up just drying out, and I had to toss some of it because, again, the thought that I would be able to spend all this time outside working on this ended up being, oh, actually, they're going to go outside so I can film in the kitchen and do things, honestly, that excited me a little bit more.
You can see that it is snowing petals in my yard. Seriously, the cherry blossom petals are everywhere. Not that I mind, I think it's gorgeous. The blossoms are so delicate, I'm not necessarily going to try to harvest them from the ground because it would be pretty difficult to pick them up, but I will gently pluck them from some of the tree branches I plan on pruning. Hi everyone,
Oh, we got a bonus. I forgot. I also collected, I don't know if I ever collected, but I thought about collecting flowers from my lilac trees, bushes, that are also really big. Now, I've heard good things about lilac, like bark or stems, and that's something I'm more likely to try because I need to prune them. And so therefore I should, at some point when I do a big pruning, end up with a lot of the bark. But I forgot, this is interspersed with my cherry blossom footage.
Rebecca from ChemKnits, and the lilacs in my garden just started blooming. And so, well, let's see if we can use them to dye some yarn. It is currently mid-May 2020. I'm not actually going to harvest the blossoms yet. I'm going to wait probably a week or two until they start to be closer to the end of their life cycle. You can see that not all the blossoms have opened up yet, but I'm excited to give it a shot.
I don't remember if I ever collected them.
My lilac bushes are huge, and I always have to do a lot of pruning and trimming of the shoots that come up, especially the ones that come here through my fence. So later on, not necessarily in this video, but I've heard that you might be able to get a cool color from the twigs, and so that's something else that we can try later on this summer.
And again, that is something that I want to try. That is something I am interested in. But again, I think that I thought, okay, I have to be outside. We may as well do all this natural dyeing. And then things got, I don't know, there was a point when we thought we would be bored. And so I got like coloring books and all kinds of stuff for me and Keith to do. And instead we just felt very busy all the time.
Yeah, but I do enjoy this time of year, even if I am very, very allergic to all of this pollen from my blooming bushes and trees. One more beautiful shot of my cherry tree.
Oh, it's so pretty. I can't wait for spring. Today is mid-November 2022 when I'm filming this, and it is the coldest day we've had so far, and I'm cold.
Oh, some petals are falling.
I wonder if I was trying to catch that. Aha!
I added a color.
See how gross my garage is? The garage floor is original to the original house, even though the walls were got new siding. So that structure is still original. And yeah, I mean, it's just the concrete floor is pretty old.
I collected a lot of petals from some branches that I needed to prune anyway. Oh, it broke my heart to trim them, but at least we'll be able to sit under them this summer. Right now, the petals are obviously still damp. You can see there's handfuls and handfuls of it. And it's probably a couple inches deep everywhere. Hopefully these will dry out reasonably. But we'll check back in on it in a couple of days.
And I don't think I ever filmed another clip. I think that that's the last thing I filmed. Now, just like the rhubarb, these did eventually dry down. They dried down a little bit more brown than the test ones that dried down to be that bright pink. And then they sat in these containers for months and then years. And then I think it was this year that I finally got rid of it because I was like, you know, I don't think there's that much pigment there. I think that what's going to happen is that I am going to make a cherry blossom tea, boil it a ton, and then see not very much color, and then maybe we'll see a hint of some color or a hint of a difference on the yarn and be underwhelmed. That's kind of what I thought might happen. And so, because goodness, did I do avocados again in this time? Do no mordant? I don't remember. I do have a whole natural dyeing playlist. I've tried a lot of things. It is certainly not a strength of mine. There are a lot of other dyers out here who have more experience and do a better job at heating things at the appropriate temperature to extract the color than me, because sometimes things get too hot and so then things turn brown instead of a pink. And so that kind of thing just happens. But now I do have one more, I guess, clip from all of this to share. And it's just all of these really cute pictures that I took. I took all of these pictures thinking about the thumbnail for the video. I was like, ooh, I should get some yarn in with the cherry blossoms and try to do something. None of these have been edited. You could see me trying slightly different angles and like, oh, there's too much sun or not enough sun. The light is doing weird things. And so I'm like, I might just put yarn over a close-up of the cherry blossoms. I remember taking all these, which is fun. Oh, it's fun. And so I've touched on this already, but I did not finish these videos. And one reason again was because how busy things got. One big reason was how busy things got around here. Trying to do Zoom school with a preschooler, and then limited remote at home work with a kindergartner, and then a Zoom in every room. It felt like Keith was trying to teach and I was trying to film, and it was just busy. And Indy was trying to exist at home. He keeps coming over and pawing at me. I don't think he's tall enough that you can see him though. And as I've alluded to, natural dyeing isn't necessarily my favorite, mainly because it's so much work and doesn't always have a dramatic payoff. Now, I really do enjoy using natural pigments that other people have extracted, and while I do have some fun collecting the materials, I just don't know. Sometimes it just feels like the results are going to be like, okay, it's going to have a little bit of yellowish color. It's not going to be that dramatic, which on one hand is sad because I should try it first, right? If I don't try it, how do I know how it's going to turn out? I don't. And so I guess there's some things that I love doing, like the yellow onion. Even if it might be a fugitive dye, you get a lot of payoff, you get a lot of pigment. And so that's a lot more fun for me. But you know, we have done other natural dyeing videos. I did blueberries with Ryder, and I actually have a little bit of a dyer's garden going on with something else I have been collecting, and I'll show that to you momentarily. But I do have plans with some interesting types of tea to try dyeing with that. And yeah, I think that there are things that can be fun, and I'm not opposed to doing more natural dyeing in the future. But looking at these folders of footage in my unedited section month after month, and now knowing that I finally this summer threw away that dried material, and so I wasn't going to make those videos, meant that I'm like, what am I doing with this footage? And so I thought that it was worth sharing. And so I really hope that you enjoyed this silly little video. And please subscribe to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. And also let me know, do you enjoy my natural dyeing videos, or do you think that they're all right? Again, I don't hate them, but there are other things that I just sometimes would rather do. And so I mean, I suppose I could bring it to the ChemKnits patrons and let you guys vote on it 1 month. And then that's a way to like force me into something. But I hope you enjoyed this little look. And now I'm going to go show you to one of my, I mean, it's almost done for the season, but something I have planned that I do plan to work on and I do plan to not throw away. And that is my marigolds. We actually got a second round of blooming around October. The plants I thought had died at some point this year because it was really dry and we weren't watering them. But I am going to need to start collecting some. I don't think I need to save seeds this year. Maybe I'll save some, but I'm going to be collecting the blossoms from some of these flowers to go along with some that I collected through 2021. So last year I collected this much of just blossoms with no seeds. And then here are some that have the seeds with it as well. I saved that separately, but I didn't feel like I necessarily had enough yet. And I also have one little container that is just seeds. And so the ones that I have outside that I haven't actually collected any blossoms from this year came from seeds from last year. And so I'll probably replant these next spring. And maybe next year we'll actually do the project. But now, beside my cherry tree that has no blossoms on it at all, because again, it's the middle of fall right now, I want to thank you all so much for watching, looking at this footage, and let me know if you're excited for me to finally do this marigold experiment. I feel like since I have collected these blossoms and stored them in a way that they're not just sitting open in my garage, it's much more likely to actually happen. I just want more. I want more vegetation so that way once we do it, I feel like we actually will get a big result. That's my hope.